The archaeological site of ancient Messini lies in a fertile valley approximately in the center of the regional unit of Messenia, south of Mount Itham. Itham was the strongest natural and man-made fortress of Messenia, controlling the valleys of Steniklaros to the north and Makaria to the south. The first installation on the site dates to the late Neolithic or the early Bronze Age, while in the 9th-8th century BC, the cult of Zeus Ithamatas was established on the peak of Mount Itham. A heroon shrine was founded in the lower city during the geometric period, from 800 to 700 BC. along with the first sanctuary of Artemis Orthia, Asclepius, and Messene. All the sacred buildings belong to a town named Itham. The Spartan annexation of the area following the First Messenian War, during 743 to 724 BC, put a stop to the evolution of the town into a more complex urban organism and the development of an urban outlook. The Spartan occupation, however, did not result in a total loss of national consciousness among the inhabitants, who were now Helots. The city of ancient Messene was founded in 369 BC by the Theban general Epaminondas, after the Battle of Lectra in 371 BC, which resulted in Spartan defeat and the establishment of the Theban hegemony. It became the capital of the Free Messenian state following a long period, about 4 centuries, of occupation of the Messenian territory by the Spartans. Strong fortification walls with towers and gates are preserved along a course of 9.5 kilometers, surrounding the city and Mount Itham. Where the sanctuaries of Zeus Ithamatas from 9th to 8th century BC, Artemis Limnatis and Eileithyia from 3rd to 2nd century BC stood. On the site of the city, are preserved public and religious buildings, many of them reconstructed to a large degree. The extensive complex of the Asclepieion from 3rd to 2nd century BC stands out, with the Doric sanctuary of Asclepius, which is surrounded by story of buildings of a religious and secular funerary nature. A series of reconstructed monumental structures, such as the Ecclesiasterion Odeon, the Boulaterion, the theatre, the Arsinoe fountain, the Agora and the stadium, as well as an extensive group of funerary monuments and haruns, including the reconstructed monumental Sathid mausoleum from 1st century BC to 1st century AD, bear witness to the size of the city and its political, religious, economic and social importance. Particularly luxurious Roman villas with mosaic floors complete the urban plan. While a multitude of inscriptions sheds light on hitherto unknown facets of the historical events that took place during the period of the Alexander successors, the Macedonian kingdom, the Achaean League, the koinon of the Arcadians and the Aetolians, and Roman interference in Greek affairs. A plethora of statues, vessels and other movable finds is on display at the nearby Archaeological Museum, testifying to the thriving society of Messene. In size, form and preservation, Messene is one of the most important cities of antiquity, and one which still has a great deal to offer. It boasts not only religious and public buildings, but also imposing fortifications, houses and funerary monuments. The city has the rare advantage of not having been destroyed or covered by later settlements, and of being situated in an untouched Mediterranean natural environment par excellence. This landscape combines the mountainous majesty of Delphi and the lowland riverine tranquility of Olympia, with the looming bare limestone mass of Mount Itham and its acropolis, and the low, fertile valley around the ancient city. The archaeological site and monuments of ancient Messene constitute an exceptional testimony to the urban environment and living conditions of an ancient Greek city, preserving all those elements that make up the ancient Greek way of life in an ancient Greek city: secular, religious, political/administrative, residential, funerary. The conquest of fertile Messene by the Spartans formed the cornerstone of Spartan power, and its 400-year occupation, by no means easy to maintain, since the Messenians never lost their identity and made constant attempts to regain their freedom, allowed Sparta to evolve into the military superpower which, together with its rival Athens, was to shape the history of classical Greece. The foundation of the city of Messene marked the end of Spartan dominion. The city became the political, economic, social, religious and artistic center of the free Messenians, who in the previous centuries had been reduced to the status of helots or perioikoi under the Spartan yoke. Ancient Messene, set in a resource-rich natural environment which drove the development of an agricultural economy, was in antiquity the greatest and most dynamically growing center of an anthropogenic whole that, based on its mythological, religious and heroic past, was able to evolve into an independent political entity and shape its own national identity. All the buildings of Messene share the same orientation and are set within the grid formed by horizontal, east-west, and vertical, north-south, streets. This urban plan is known as the Hippodamian Grid, after its originator Hippodamus of Miletus, an architect, town planner, geometrician and astronomer of the 5th century BC. Rhodes and Piraeus are characteristic early examples of cities designed and built according to this system. It is worth noting that this predetermined, strictly geometric pattern, which is based on the principles of isonomy, equality under the law, isopolity, equal civic rights, and isomoria, equal sharing of land, that is, the virtues of democracy, was adapted to the particular terrain and climate of each site, harmoniously integrated into the natural environment. The basic idea of the Hippodamian urban plan, arising from the democratic ideal, is that all citizens should have plots of land of equal size and suitability, and access to public and sacred buildings, the communal spaces in other words, which dominate the city due to their monumental size and wealth of decoration. Messene forms an exceptional and uniquely preserved example of this type of urban plan, precisely because it preserves all the elements that make up the social network of the city, whether religious, sanctuaries and haruns, secular, agora, balanan baths, dining halls, theater, gymnasium, stadium, political/administrative, ecclesiasterian, boulaterion, archive, funerary or residential. The archaeological site and monuments of ancient Messene constitute an exceptional testimony of a typical ancient Greek city, as regards both the urban environment and the living conditions, preserving all those elements that make up the ancient Greek way of life: secular, religious, political/administrative, residential, funerary. It also has the rare advantage of not having been destroyed or covered by later settlements, and of being situated in an untouched Mediterranean natural environment par excellence. In the stadium, for example, games dedicated to Asclepius, Zeus Ithamatas and the Sebastoi, the Roman emperors, were held. In the gymnasium, the youths of Messene trained and exercised with young men from the cities of the whole territory for 3 years, maintaining the traditional rites of passage in order to attain manhood. Hero founders of the city and protectors of adolescents were honored in the shrines and sanctuaries, where their statues stood. Noblemen and benefactors, as well as those who had died for their country, were honored after death as heroes with remarkable funerary structures, whose presence is inextricably interwoven with the political and social life of the city, Sayyid Harun Mausoleum, funerary monuments near the gymnasium, etc. The various secular buildings include a large bathhouse complex, and notable urban Roman villas. The buildings themselves bear irrefutable witness to the social, political and religious life of the city, as do the numerous inscribed bases of a variety of dedicatory statues. Remarkable works of art adorn the Asclepieion and other structures. Among these stand out the colossal sculptures of the Messenian sculptor Damophon, a notable son and benefactor of Messene, 210 to 180 BC. Whose fame extended beyond the limits not only of Messene but of the Peloponnese itself. It is worth noting that in the Asclepieion of Messene, the most important religious center of the city, were gathered the places of worship of the major deities. At the same time, however, the presence of the Boulaterion also lent the Asclepieion a political aspect. Thus the Asclepieion of Messene is not a typical Asclepieion of a primarily healing nature, like those of Epidaurus, Athens, and Kos. It is a unique example of an Asclepieion that functions as a combination of a free and sacred agora. The great theater hosted entertainments and political gatherings of the citizens. The archaeological site and the surrounding landscape are directly linked to the development of ancient Greek history in the classical period, as well as to major political and historical events during the turbulent course of the Hellenistic and Roman eras. The conquest of fertile Messene by the Spartans formed the cornerstone of Spartan power, and its 400 years occupation, by no means easy to maintain, since the Messenians never lost their identity and made constant attempts to regain their freedom, allowed Sparta to evolve into the military superpower which, together with its rival Athens, was to shape the history of classical Greece. The foundation of the city of Messene marked the end of Spartan dominion. The city became the political, economic, social, religious and artistic center of the free Messenians, who in the previous centuries had been reduced to the status of helots or perioikoi under the Spartan yoke. Ancient Messene, set in a resource-rich natural environment, which drove the development of an agricultural economy, was in antiquity the greatest and most dynamically growing center of an anthropogenic whole that, based on its mythological, religious and heroic past, was able to develop into an independent political entity, and shape its own identity. In the modern era, the site is a reference point for the Messenians' historical past, since it is linked to the most important periods of their history and mythology, and inspires constant efforts and creative striving for development and progress on a cultural, political and economic level.